Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation. I decided to do it on trust and deception. My name is Carolina Martinez and we'll be going over some of the pointers that we learned throughout the course. The first point I'd like to touch on and a question that I'd like to raise is, what was the last lie you told? Who did you lie to? Was it a family member? Was it a friend of yours? Did you end up even lying to yourself? I found a very interesting quote that I think is relevant, and it's by Lord Byron. It reads, "After all, what is a lie? 'Tis but the truth in masquerade." So we're gonna start by going over the concept of a trust. When we ask ourselves, what is trust? We can say that it is a willingness to rely or depend on others. We place our trust in others because of various reasons, whether they're acquaintances or been friends for a long time, or a family member that we trust a lot. It's also important to note that not everyone can express what trust means, whether because they have a limited emotional availability to share those things, or because they just have a predisposition to hardship in terms of sharing feelings. And of course, as we all know, trust is something that develops over time, not overnight. So it's something that we must work on our relationships so that we can create and make trust something part of it. The next thing is components of trust. We've got trust in behavior, which is defined as confidence in another person's behavior. And we also have trustworthy behavior, which is behaving in a way that earns trust from others. Now, a big question that comes to mind is, why do we lie? There are two types of lying. There's overt lying, which is deliberately distorting the truth, and also covert, which is basically concealing sensitive information that we do not want to share. Also, we rarely tell a single lie. It's likely to be followed by others in a pattern that people follow, where once they lie once, they have to keep lying in order to keep that lie afloat and to keep it believable for the rest of people. And lying can obviously hurt others, but in a contrast manner, so can the truth. The truth can be hurtful and detrimental in some cases, depending on who you're talking to and how you deliver that message. Then there is a very interesting part of this chapter that is basically on lying to ourselves. It's basically a part of defensive strategies that we use. There are some different types. There's displacement lying, which is when we release our anger by transferring our negative feelings to people or objects that we perceive to be less dangerous than what originated or triggered the feeling. We also have repression, which is when situations are too painful or too unpleasant for us to face. And rationalization, which is giving ourselves a logical or a reasonable explanation for our unrealistic thoughts or feelings. Then I wanted to add a little additional information that I thought was very interesting and related to the matter, and that would be involving the psychology of lying, which is very interesting to me because my dad is a psychologist, and so I learned a lot of stuff about him, and I think I applied that knowledge to the course and vice versa. So I think it's a very interesting topic to discuss now that we're covering this material. We've got, on the other spectrum, people that tell lies pathologically. These are people that feel a compulsion to tell lies and may lie for no apparent benefit. People in this category often qualify for a diagnosis of a mental health disorder as designated by the American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, or DSM. Common diagnoses that are associated with patients who consistently lie are including the following: antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, fictitious disorders, which basically refers to someone who thinks they have a disorder, but they actually do not, and other disorders such as paranoid personality disorder and dissociative disorders can also lead to this. Of course, this does not encompass all liars or all compulsive liars. This is another branch of it. Of course, people may lie for a whole lot of reasons that don't necessarily fall into the category of pathological lying. I would go into more detail about these disorders, except we're supposed to keep it short, so I'm just going to mention them and continue. In terms of a personal experience, I remember when I was in high school, I had a friend. His name was Brian. We didn't know anything about him when he transferred into our school. We heard this great story about him and his dad owning a dealership, having all these fancy sports cars, how he would always earn a lot of cash at the casino, and his plan to graduate and after that seek a career in medicine. After we graduated from high school, some of his friends were invited to his house, and we didn't see any of the cars he had mentioned. We didn't even know where his dad was, and we found some pictures and some other things that did not correlate to the story he had given us at all. So that's when we found out that something was wrong. And well, some of us just brushed it off, and I still kept in contact with him though, and many years later, I went to visit him again, and I realized that he wasn't even enrolled in school to become a doctor. He was doing a whole different thing. He wasn't even studying at the time. So that's when I realized this guy really had a compulsion for lying about everything to make his life look like something a lot more interesting than it was. And that was one of the stories where I can relate to this a lot more, and I'm pretty sure other people out there have experienced the same thing with a friend or acquaintance that wasn't always what they seemed. Now, how do we know where to place our trust? We should only trust when it's warranted. Inappropriate risks can cause problems. Be willing to question other people's motives, most of all, and always keep in mind what are these people's motives, what are they trying to get out of this relationship or circumstance, and how can you react to that. And to close this a little bit, I would like to leave an open-ended question for all of y'all, so you can just go over in your heads. Nobody needs to know about your answers, but it's something important to ponder about ourselves. Why do you lie? How often do you lie? To whom do you lie? And going over these things may give us a more broad understanding of our own psyche and how it compares to that of others and how it fits in society nowadays. And finally, how can you improve upon that? Thank you very much. This was my presentation, and I hope you all have a great day.